comic book fans everywhere. You are now listening to the official Crossover Comics Podcast with your hosts at JJ's Comic Stuff and at Longbox Entertainment.
What is going on, everybody? You are listening to the Crossover Comics Podcast. My name is Jeremy. I'm here with my co-host, Michael, as always. And today we have a special guest with us. We have Year of the Collector from TikTok. He is here to help us talk about Hispanic Heritage Month in comic books. And since I don't know a whole lot about this subject, I am going to turn it over to Michael real quick. So you guys go ahead and take it away.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Mike here again, Longbox Entertainment. Y'all already know, so we got our boy Year. Make sure y'all follow my boy Year on TikTok, whatnot. Do you have an Instagram, Year?
I do. Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's Year the Collector. So y'all make sure y'all follow him. Give him some love. He's the best out there. Awesome. He's literally like his own little LCS, little kid. At least that's what we call him. But yeah, man. So Hispanic Heritage Month. It's usually celebrated from the 15th of September to the 15th of October, which is kind of weird. It's like splitting 2 months, but at least that's what I saw on the internet. I don't know. But yeah, we're gonna.
We all know how accurate the internet is. So.
Oh yeah.
Exactly.
It must be true. If it wasn't on the internet, it has to be true.
Exactly. I read it on Google, man. But so yeah, we're gonna talk about all things Hispanic/Latino superheroes, comics, and maybe even some comic creators and whatnot. So I just want to start off with a question. Who was the first Latino superhero? Because I've seen a lot of conflicting things on said internet. So what in y'all opinion is the first Latino superhero?
Maybe White Tiger.
I was just about to say, from what I've researched, it seems to be White Tiger, but I feel like that's probably inaccurate, isn't it? Like, I mean, there's got to be somebody who made a Hispanic comic book character before 1976.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm gonna give my answer after we go over White Tiger. So, if y'all want to explain White Tiger, because I know he's a Marvel superhero.
Yeah. For what I can recollect, White Tiger was co-created by the late great George Lopez in the 70s, and the character throughout legacy, the mantle has been passed down through, I want to say, 3 generations now. All throughout the generations, the character behind the mask has been of Puerto Rican descent. So I as far as I can recall, like off the top of my head like that, I think White Tiger is like maybe the first Puerto Rican comic book character / superhero, but I'm sure there had to be someone else before that.
Okay. Because I remember my experience with White Tiger was on the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon, but it was the female White Tiger.
Right.
I don't know if you ever seen it. I think her name was Ava. Her name was Ava. She was the female White Tiger. Because the thing about the White Tiger, they always have that little amulet that gives them like the powers.
Right.
And I always thought that character was cool. I just never read a lot of White Tiger. The only time I've read a comic with White Tiger in it was in Brian Michael Bendis's Daredevil run.
Okay.
Because Matt had like defended White Tiger in like a court case and whatnot. I can't remember all the details, but it was pretty dope, seeing him. I wish Marvel would do more with that character, because White Tiger is pretty much relatively like unknown,
Yeah, her full name is Ava Ayala. That's what we was thinking.
Ava Ayala.
Yeah,
There it is.
that's I want to say the third White Tiger.
Because that was
I'm gonna say that
that
I'm seeing here
was
that I'm looking up. It's mostly White Tiger seems to be just a character they use as like a side character in a lot of tie-in issues.
mm,
And this in the few single runs they have given the character, it's been like 5 issues and then it's done.
oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the White Tiger first appearance was in the Deadly Hands of Kung Fu number 19 in 1975.
Okay. Okay.
So
Got it.
Hector Ayala, Casper Cole, Angela del Toro, and Ava Ayala have all held the mantle of White Tiger.
Okay. Okay. And you said he first appeared in Deadly Hands, right?
Yeah, the Deadly Hands of Kung Fu number 19.
Okay. Because it honestly, it just came to my attention that Deadly Hands of Kung Fu was a like a anthology series in a way where it told stories of different martial artists throughout the Marvel universe. At first, I thought it was just Shang-Chi stories, but I was wrong.
I mean, that's a good assumption, I would say.
True, true.
Well, and especially if you go back to like the Golden Age, there were most comic books were anthology series. They were 10 or 12 different stories packed into one book.
Yeah.
True that. True that. True that. So, so White Tiger. Now that's what Google says is the first Latino superhero
So overall, not just like specifically Puerto Rican, it's like overall first Latin.
overall.
Wow, that's
That's what
crazy.
Google
In the
says.
70s.
Of course, I disagree because I like to count Zorro as the first. Even though I don't know if you can count him as a superhero, he's more of a swashbuckler. But
Well,
you know,
I don't think it really necessarily has to be superhero. I would just say that we're talking about comic book characters in general,
Right.
right? So
true.
it doesn't necessarily have to be a superhero, but that's what everything points to when you search who was the
Mhm.
first, Hispanic comic book character. It always points to superheroes or supervillains.
True.
I will buy
True.
that for
True.
$1. You know, still comic book character. And I'm sure for like the children and the people that
Mhm.
read those comics, Zorro comics back then, I'm sure he was a superhero of some sorts. I mean, Bruce Wayne was watching a movie about El Zorro, right? The
Yes, Marco
La
Zorro.
Fateful Night,
Yes.
the Mask
Hmm.
of El Zorro, correct?
Hmm. Hmm.
There you go, legacy right
That's
there.
the movie that Bruce was watching that night when he lost his parents. And the thing is that I find cool that Bob Kane, quotation marks, he likes to say that Zorro was one of the big inspirations for Batman and how you know Batman is a billionaire playboy and
The
he
cape, the
wears
mask.
black in the cave, yes, all that stuff. So you can definitely see the similarities in Zorro. And through like my research and whatnot, I saw that Zorro first appeared in a story called The Curse of Capistrano. I hope I'm saying
Capistrano,
that right.
yeah.
There we go.
So thank you. You're going to have
And
to correct us
supposedly
on pronunciations a lot tonight, I'm
you
assuming.
will,
I didn't mean
you
to do
will,
that. I'm sorry.
you will, because I am I'm from Mississippi. I grew up in a Mississippi school system,
Mm.
so you gotta have to help me out. But and I didn't know this. He was created by Johnston McCurley, and it was in a part of the pulp magazines called All Story Weekly.
Mm.
So this was like a weekly thing that would come out, and kids and whatnot can experience Zorro stories. But yes, probably like you guys, my first introduction to Zorro was the Antonio Banderas movie.
Hmm.
Yeah, I would say so too. Was that late 90s maybe?
Late
Like
90s, I
mid
want to
90s. I
say.
think it was like 96, 97.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, hell of a movie. Catherine Zeta-Jones, Antonio Banderas. Um,
She was
there's
so
a
fine,
few,
man. I tell you,
top
man.
tier actors and actresses in that movie.
Hmm.
For
Hmm.
sure.
The only thing that's kind of weird to me now when I watch the movie, Anthony Hawkins playing the original Zorro, that I, I'm like, okay,
I think
I
that man has
guess.
probably played every nationality under the sun except for African.
Probably,
Like,
probably, probably.
Mm.
I was like, okay, all right, it's whatever.
Yeah, yeah, casting back in those days, and not necessarily accurate.
not the most representative.
Yeah, I
True that,
mean,
true that. I mean,
we all know this.
in
We don't have to like go into detail.
Right,
It
right,
didn't
right.
change until recently,
true
10,
that,
maybe 15 years. So
true that. I mean, in Anthony's defense, I would say the original Zorro, as he's depicted in like the original stories, his name is Don Diego de la Vega, and supposedly he's not, even though he lives in uh, California, which was a part of Mexico at the time
right.
period that the story takes place. He's actually a Spaniard,
Mm.
so I guess
Yeah, he should. Yeah, you're right. I mean, if he was Spaniard, he should look Caucasian. Ain't no, I don't have a problem with it.
right. So I guess, but yeah, I actually went through a phase where I was like really into Zorro, and I started reading some of the Dynamite comics. Have y'all
Oh,
ever read any of those?
I have not.
Oh, yeah, they're good. They're good, especially the Zorro Year One story where it explains how like he traveled the world to train. Does that sound familiar?
um, yeah, I think I heard something like this before somewhere. And
Somewhere.
yeah,
I don't know. But yeah, Zorro's cool, man. I always liked him. I always liked him. But do y'all have any like other characters that y'all like want to talk about? Because there's a bunch.
yeah, I got quite a list here. I even, doing research for this episode, I found or was just informed of like the heritage or the nationality of some characters that I already knew, but was not aware, where they were from. Um,
Same
like
here, man.
yeah, like Victor Mancha, the quote unquote son of Ultron. You ever heard of Victor?
I have.
So Victor's quote unquote mom, she's Hispanic, so he's raised by a Hispanic mother, so technically, that makes him Hispanic too.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's one of the Victor. I would say Victor America Chavez and um, there was one more that they're technically. Oh, Bane is another one. They're technically Hispanic, right? Like Bane is not necessarily from any country that actually exists on real life, but in his universe, Santa Prisca is like in South America, so that makes him Hispanic.
Right, right.
Or like America Chavez, right? She comes from a different dimension, and she grows up in like Hispanic, Mexican, Puerto Rican communities. So she has that upbringing. So that makes her Hispanic in a way, or at
True.
least she's welcome in that community, if you want to put it that way. So there's a few characters that not necessarily are born in a country or have parents or family that comes from a specific country, but they grew up in their culture, or they like Bane, it's like a fantasy
It's a
nation.
fictional South American country, isn't it?
Exactly.
Right, right, right.
I thought that was
Like
pretty cool.
most things in DC, they never really put like real cities and whatnot.
No, that's why you got like Gotham and Metropolis and places like that. Where here in, Marvel,
True.
you've got New York, California, like places that
Everything in
actually
between is like
exist.
gray area. It's not
Right,
specified.
Right.
right.
You know
True that. True
what
that.
I realized when I was looking up all these characters is that a lot of the Hispanic superheroes in comic books, they inherit the mantle from somebody else, right?
I've noticed that too.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it's like, if not all of them, almost all of them inherit the mantle or the powers, or they get the name from somebody else. They just carry on the
True.
torch. So if I was gonna sum up Hispanic heritage in comic books, it's like the passing of the torch for most of these characters. Like if we go like down the list, like you can
Cal
start
Rayner.
with like Blue Beetle, like Jamie
Blue.
Reyes or Jaime Reyes, right? Not necessarily new Ted Core or any of the Blue Beetle
Dan
for that
Garrett.
matter. Dan Garrett,
Garrett.
he
Yeah.
just happened, to find the scarab during Infinite Crisis, and then he became the next Blue Beetle.
True.
So he carried on the torch for that mantle for that superhero.
You know something I find cool about Jaime, the fact that Ted Cord thought that the scarab was destroyed, that it like wouldn't work, and I think is it because of that something in Jaime was able to make the scarab work. You know.
It it was more of the writing because we know Ted Core, he didn't have any superpowers like his predecessor. He was more of an inventor, right?
Hmm.
He was very creative. He had a lot of resources, so he could employ that in his Blue Beetle missions. But once they started writing Jamie Reyes as the new Blue Beetle, depending of like what run you're reading of the Blue Beetle, the Blue Beetle is either alien technology or comes from some mystical powers, or his dimension. His powers are mystical in a way.
Right.
So I can't say for sure what was the reason why the scarab actually merged into him and how his powers different were different from Ted Core, but
Mm-hmm.
we do like that's like the line on the sand. Like Ted Core had no powers, even though he had the scarab, and then when it attached to Jamie, it basically skipped the generation of Ted Core, and then the next one it went back to having powers.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, I like that version of Blue Beetle a lot. I think he was very relatable, especially when I started reading his comics. I was young, so I was still in high school, and just the fact that he was a high school kid as well. You know, I could kind of even though like I'm not Hispanic or anything, I could still relate to him. Like I
Relate,
could still
yeah.
see myself, you know, in him, and I always felt it was cool. That's why I'm really looking forward to his live action movie. I hope
Yeah,
I
I
hope they do it
If we
justice.
still get it.
oh
That true that.
let's not do that. Don't give me
Speaking
hope.
of DC, I want to get Year's opinion on this. What the whole Hispanic Heritage Month with DC seems kind of money grabby right now.
Right,
Like I don't understand. Like they did the same thing with DC Pride Month. Like they did
right,
the covers, but no real stories about these
right,
characters.
right.
Right.
Why do you think
Um,
that is? Like, especially
because
with
they're
the
lazy.
troubling Green Lantern cover they started with.
They're lazy. That's it. There's you can do any kind of depiction of any aspect of Hispanic life, even if it's something as simple as cuisine, but there's ways to do things tastefully, and I given examples before. That whole it's offensive or not, that's to each his own, that's very subjective. My, I guess, most objective uh, opinion on that on those covers is that they were lazy. um, they could have done even the same topics that they cited, where Kyle Rayner carrying some food. If you want to show him, enjoying some Hispanic or Mexican cuisine, you could have done that in a way that it was more tasteful, or more
Like he could have been
detailed.
at a restaurant, he could have been at a
Exactly,
dinner
he could have
table.
been
Instead,
at
they
a
had him
Mexican
in
restaurant
space with a
having a
bag of
date.
tamales.
Yeah, having exactly, that was just bad. Um, it's just lazy. Like, I can't even believe it went all the way to be shown as a preview. Like, how many set of eyes and editors and
Hmm.
That's what I'm
members
saying.
of
Like,
that
you would
team.
figure these companies are like multi-billion dollar companies at this point, and they would have enough people in place, like as quality control. Like something like that
But you
shouldn't have
know
Exactly.
made
what?
it. That
You know
something
what,
like that should not have made it
JJ?
out to the public.
You know what, JJ? That actually makes it a whole lot worse because what I read that you know how they have there's two different covers out.
Hmm.
Right.
There's the one where he's holding the I think it's is it the Mexican flag
Yep.
It's the Mexican
and he has
flag with
the
a
and he
bag of
has the
The
tamales,
lantern.
and then
battery, the
it's
Green Lantern
the
battery.
So there's another one with him with the Green Lantern battery. So supposedly the artist on that he said that that was his first cover and DC made the change.
I believe it.
They made him change it to the
I,
bag of tamales with
I
the
believe you, because
other
if you
flag.
see the other ones, there's something regarding food in the other ones.
Hmm.
Like Jessica Cruz is posing on top of a pile of villains that she beat, and then she's eating something. A hot girl is flying around a tray with some food at a food truck. Like, you can see the theme there. But
So
yeah,
I think DC they if they wanted the theme to be if they wanted the
food.
theme to be
Yeah,
food, they should have told the artist that straight up. Now it looks bad on them when they physically change a whole cover, you know?
yeah. Just the fact that you changed it, you're admitting to the public that you knew it was effed up, basically.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
and just the fact that they why would you make them make a more offensive cover? That I don't understand.
That's
Like
the
that
thing.
Look,
doesn't
man,
make any sense.
That's the
it's
thing.
because they got some old
When I
white
first saw,
dudes in charge of DC, man.
that's
That's all it is.
when
That's
when I
really
first saw them, Toy Story and our friend Timo, um, he's the one who showed them to me, and I was thinking that there was gonna be a story, with these Hispanic characters inside the book, right? So if you show me a cover, somebody like Blue Beetle flying around with like a bag of burritos, and then in the book, you show that he was like on a way to save the world, and he happened to be buying food, and that's why you see him swinging out, like flying around with some food in his hand, because
mm-hmm.
that's where he was. Heroes gotta eat too. I get that. You could build a story around the image and make at
True.
least make it make sense. But if it's just the cover and there's no context to it, there's no story behind it, there's nothing building up uh, to that, then it's just lazy.
Yeah. And it's a Teen Titans story too. I think the actual cover is going to be on a Teen Titans book.
It's multiple books, I think.
It's multiple.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like the swimsuit variants. Like, you have
Hmm.
a bunch of different titles where the cover is a swimsuit edition. Black Adam, Supergirl,
Right.
Action Comics, Batman, Catwoman. All of them are either at a pool or a beach. Getting a suntan. It's a theme, right? But the actual books have nothing to do with any of that. It's just the covers, and that's what they were going with for Hispanic Heritage Month.
True. I just hope they do better, man. Because there's a lot of already. I feel like Hispanic characters don't get a lot of love.
They
Like a
don't.
lot of these characters don't have ongoing series right now.
Right.
Actually, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't even think Blue Beetle has an ongoing right now.
A solo? No.
He had
Uh,
that. I think the last thing he was in was that Blue Beetle and Booster Gold run.
From
oh
Rebirth?
wow,
Yeah, and that wasn't even.
and he had to share that.
Yeah, and that wasn't even Jaime. That
Yeah.
was
Yeah, it was
Ted Cord.
Ted. It's
Oh,
Ted.
So
wow.
it wasn't even Jaime's Blue Beetle.
Or like, say another cool character that I really like, Renee Montoya when she became the Question.
The question. That's crazy. Renee
She
Montoya has a crazy
and
uh, legacy because she was created by Paul Dini in the
Paul Dini.
BTAS show, right?
Hmm.
Just, a detective in the background. She happened to be in all the crime scenes or pulling up every
Right,
time. It was the same three cops every time.
right. Bullock, Montoya, Gordon.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was always them.
And then I think she made her first appearance, what, in the 52?
Yes, it was in the 52 series.
Yeah.
That's when
And then
she.
in that same series, she picked up the mantle of the question from
Actually,
Charlie Victor,
I think it was
Zaz.
Gotham Central
not
when she
Sass,
made her first appearance.
Yeah,
Sage.
it's I'm looking Sage. Yeah, I pronounced it wrong, but yeah, it's like very suspiciously close to Victor Zaz.
Yeah, yeah, but that's why I try to
Mhm.
say the whole name so I didn't get
Yeah.
confused because it happened to me.
Right.
His whole name is Charlie Victor Sage. They either call him Vic or Victor Sage usually. But yeah, he ended up passing, and
Hmm.
she took the mantle of the question, and still to this day, she's still on the question.
Yeah, we just don't see her in anything. That's the thing.
Yeah, well,
That's the
not
crazy
now.
part.
Well, and like you said, they don't get enough support. I want to say not just maybe not from the fans, but like the publishers, because
Hmm.
the most you saw of Renee Montoya as a question were in the Detective Comics, where it was Batwoman, one half of the book, and then the other half was the question Renee Montoya. Like not
Right.
even her own book.
Because that was the Detective Comics, right?
Detective Comics, yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. That was a good series too.
It was. It was.
If I'm being honest, that
Um,
was really good. And one thing I don't know if we messed up on Renee Montoya's. I know her first appearance as the Question was in 52, but I think
yes.
her first appearance was in Gotham Central.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I
Yes. Yes.
think
Yes. 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 You're right.
I want to say,
Yeah. It,
um,
it, it featured like a lot of the DC PD characters from the show in that book. Like
mhm,
almost the entire police department had their first appearance in comic books in that title.
right, right. And that was a good series too.
Um, Another one from DC that also a female that picked up the mantle for another hero was Wildcat.
Yes,
Yolanda,
Yolanda.
yeah, Yolanda Montes. She picked up after Wildcat, and then she became something else. Some other, she got some actual powers.
Hmm.
I can't remember what was it, but she became something else
Okay,
while being the Wildcat.
because I remember. So the only thing I've read with Yolanda was her little appearance in Crisis on Infinite Earths and when she was on Infinity Inc. I don't know. Have y'all ever read Infinity Inc. before?
I have not.
No,
So,
from 1985. Yeah, no, I haven't read that.
so Infinity Inc. was kind of like a legacy Justice Society, pretty much. So you had a lot of
Okay.
those characters. Like you had the second Doctor Midnight in there. Uh, you had Hector Hall, who was the son of Hawkman and Hawkgirl. He was in there. All that type of stuff. So, It's a nice little series. If y'all
See,
got
let's see.
DC Universe Infinite, I'll probably check it out.
See, another one that I saw, I think it was from Marvel. Um, this character, his name was Velocidad, which means speed in English.
Hmm.
And he was a speedster, quote unquote, but he was not technically a speedster. He was more of he could slow down time, and
Oh,
he could move fast because everything else slowed down. And it was funny the way they show how he came to understand this power of his. He tried running on water, and like on his second step, he sunk, and that's when he realized everything else was just slow, and he was just moving in while everything slowed down instead of him being fast. I
oh,
saw those panels. I was like, this is cool. This is a little different. I like this.
that's dope.
I would
That's
say
kind of
that's
dope.
interesting because, there's a lot of people with super speed, but there's not a lot
Right.
of people with time manipulation. Like, that's cool
That is cool. Actually, that
because
is
the
cool.
Flash
Right.
can go really, really fast, but he can't
Exactly.
alter time. He can create a new time paradox thing, but he can't just straight manipulate it.
True. True.
See, this question is for the debaters, right? And I'm just gonna throw this out there: who will win a race between Velocidad and somebody like, let's say, Quicksilver? Somebody that's actually fast, or somebody that can slow down time?
Because at that point, does super speed matter?
I feel like if
I
it
feel
was
like it would kind of cancel each other out, and they would just be both regular speed at that point.
if it was the Flash would do it. The Flash would win because the Flash is broken. That's a broken
Right.
character.
Right.
Okay.
Hence why I did not say the Flash. I said
I
Quicksilver.
know. I know. I know that's why. I don't know. Yeah, that's
Let's see.
interesting.
Let's
I'm
keep
with
going
JJ
here.
on that answer. Maybe.
Just kind of cancels each other out.
Right.
But
All right.
here's a question for you guys. Who are some of your favorite Hispanic creators? We've talked a lot about characters.
Oh, I got a few.
Uh,
Um, Go ahead, Lombox.
um, I got a couple. I got uh,
Because you got, see, a lot of this podcast episode, I'm learning. So I'm like taking notes, I'm looking up characters.
right. I would have to go with Humberto Ramos. He
Okay.
he did a lot of X-Men work. I want to say like late '90s, maybe early 2000s. But I like his style because it's very like manga, like anime type, and it made
Okay.
for like a very different, style of like drawing. So I really liked him. Um, Joe Quesada is one of my favorites. Look at his work
Cuban.
He's
from
Cuban,
Marvel.
I was going to
Cuban.
say, yeah.
Yeah, he's Cuban.
Yeah.
He's Cuban, and his work on Daredevil was dope. His work on
Mm,
Spider Man is great. So he's just a dope
I mean, and
artist.
you got to mention George Perez
George
since he
Perez.
was, Puerto Rican. So,
And the crazy thing I've noticed, like my favorite like Hispanic like comic creators are artists.
hmm
Are artists. And you got to mention George Perez. Like this is just you. That's just a must.
Yeah. I'm gonna talk about George Perez later on. I want to give shout out to other creators
Hmm.
that I didn't know and I came to learn about on the research for this podcast. The first uh, artist that I want to give a shout out to is Alex this kind of hard to pronounce, Schomburg.
Hmm.
He is a golden age artist, and he was Puerto Rican. He passed away in 1998 at the age of 92. He was from Aguadilla, Puerto Rico,
Oh,
and he worked all the way from the 30s to the 40s, well, I'm sorry, he worked throughout the decade of the 40s in comic books. He worked on comic books like USA Comics, or AKA Captain America Comics from the Golden Age. He worked on the Human Torch, the
Wow.
Oh
original
wow.
Human
Okay.
Torch, Submariner, the original Submariner. He worked in Marvel Mystery Comics from the 40s,
Wow.
Mystic Comics from the 40s. He did a lot, especially for Human Torch. He did a lot of the art, a lot of the covers for the series. So I wanted to give it a shout out because, you know, I probably I didn't know about this character, this artist, and him passing away. I don't know, almost 20 years ago. Just wanted to put his name out there again for people that like Golden Age comics.
Hmm.
Another one. Well, you already mentioned Joe Quesada. Joe Quesada he should get a little bit more credit because when he signed with Marvel Knights, like Marvel was like in the verge of bankruptcy, and
Right.
he was one of those artists that decided, you know, deliberately to work for Marvel when they had no money.
Hmm.
He wanted to be, he wanted to continue the legacy. He wanted to continue working on comics, and he took on that challenge, knowing that it was a shot in the dark.
He cared. He
They
loved
had
it.
just had powerful bankruptcy, so either they went under and they shut down for business, or they kept their head above water, or they got back into you know leading the comic book industry and coming down from under, financially. And he should get more credit for that. Him and everybody else that
Right.
was,
And he also became editor in chief at Marvel at a period of time.
yes.
And people need to remember when he was editor in chief, that's when some bangers were coming out. That's when Civil War was going on. Like
Hmm.
you had some
When he
pretty
was editor in chief, that's correct. Yes.
Secret Invasion was going on. Like
Oh yeah, there was a lot of good comics. New Avenger was
New
was
Avengers.
out.
Hmm.
Civil War, Secret Invasion came after that. So there's a lot of stuff that still has a lot of weight and it holds 20 years later.
Hmm.
Another one, I got Ernie Colon, was another Puerto Rican living in the States that worked in comics too during the 90s. He worked for indies a lot, like Atlas Comics, Eclipse Comics,
Okay.
Gold Key, Harvey Comics, but he did some work for the leading two in the industry like Marvel and DC.
That's cool. All right.
For DC, for give you an example, he worked on Blue Devil, Brave and the Bold
What?
in the 80s. Yep.
Okay.
From in 1981. He did a House of Mystery, Legion of Superheroes, The Outsiders. He working on some heavy stuff from the 80s that still he holds to this day. And then for Marvel, he worked in the Black Widow titles, Damage Control, which is it's always funny comics. I
Yes.
recommend everybody to read Damage
One of my
Control. It's very underrated.
one of
I'll
my
say I haven't read a whole lot of it, but I've read a few issues here and there, and they were always enjoyable when I have read them.
Yeah.
one
So,
of my favorite comic book writers of all time worked on Damage Control. Dwayne McDuffie.
mm,
Okay, okay.
So maybe I wonder were they working like with each other, like on the same run?
Oh man, see, that's the thing. You keep finding, these dots that you can connect.
Right. That's
Um,
crazy.
Another Puerto Rican artist, Kenneth Rocafort. He was born in Mayagüez, Puerto Rico, in 1983. So he's more contemporary with me and JJ.
Mhm.
hmm
He worked in DC in a lot of different projects. Superman, Action Comics, the New 52, Red Hood and the Outlaws,
What?
Superman, yeah, Batman, Young Romans, Justice League, Superboy, Supergirl, Teen Titans, Detective Comics, and then for Marvel, he worked on Astonishing Tales, Avengers, the Ultimates, and Inhumans versus X-Men. And these ones are fairly more recent. We're talking about mid 2000s to all the way to 2015, 2016.
So is that the Ultimate series with Blue Marvel in it? Is it that series?
I'm not sure. I just had it pulled up and I closed it out, but it was from, yeah. Cause I'm trying to
Oh, it's
like
fine. It's fine.
close them out so I don't can make room here with all these open windows. And then another one that makes some waves with a a character in a comic series that he started. His name is Edgardo Miranda, another Puerto Rican writer and artist, and he activist, um, you name it. This guy has been all over the place,
Okay.
but his biggest, I guess, print on comics was when he created the Puerto Rican superhero called La Borinqueña, which I'm sure you've seen it somewhere because it made some rounds in the media. The actual superhero La Borinqueña, she kind of looks like Storm in her getup. Like she got that big cape and the whole
Okay.
tights with the turtleneck, but her costume is like the Puerto Rican flag,
Oh wow.
Oh,
and,
okay.
and she has some like
That
weather
does sound vaguely
manipulation
familiar. I feel like I've
powers.
seen that character at least once.
Yeah, it was from, let me see, 2016.
Okay. That does
Yeah,
sound
I
familiar.
personally, yeah, I personally didn't like the design, but I was very proud to see something like that. Puerto Rican character reading and drawn and published by Puerto Ricans. It was a project that got a lot of. It had a lot of steam, but unfortunately, we had the Hurricane Maria hit in 2017, and they lost a lot of resources
Hmm.
and support because
Oh man.
it got really rough in Puerto Rico after that. But if anybody is interested, you can find it online. There's still hard copies out there for you to read.
Okay.
Okay. Like I said, I'm
Yeah,
taking notes. I'm gonna have to check that out. I'm sure we can
Okay.
track it down.
Oh yeah.
yeah, and then finally, we have to talk about a little bit in depth about George Perez because George
I would
Perez
say
is
that sounds
somebody
like a
that,
good segment to end
Oh
on.
yeah.
That's about a good 15 minutes we could talk about George Perez easy.
Oh yeah.
man, George Perez was somebody that anybody can look up to because George always had a chip on his shoulder, and he never stopped proving himself throughout the decades,
Mhm.
right? And I say this because back in the day, artists did not get paid extra to work on team books, crossovers,
No, they still got paid their
Avengers,
regular wages.
Yep.
Justice. Exactly, you got paid the same wage for doing a single character book
Hmm.
as doing a multiple character book, and he took that as a challenge. And you could see that he always pays the utmost respect to every character that was going to be on the panel.
Every
It
character.
didn't matter if one character was like almost the size of the page and the other characters was going to be as small as possible. You could tell definitely who was who every time you saw his work. And
I think he actually like broke the record for the most comic book characters on one page.
Yep, he did
Yeah,
that full huge. It was, I'm pretty sure, a wraparound cover of just like
Mhm.
almost every Marvel character, at least
the one
close.
I get think of right now was during the crossover of Avengers and JLA,
Yes.
where there was a two panel drawn where it had all of the characters that participated during that crossover, all of the Marvel and all of the DC characters.
Heck yeah.
So yeah, George Perez, man, he worked on you name it, Avengers, Justice League, Teen
Teen
Titans,
Titans, Wonder Woman,
um,
Wonder Woman. His
Wonder
Wonder
Woman
Woman run is so good.
for
a long time, I feel
yeah,
like.
he
For
worked
years.
yeah, he worked on like the first 15 issues, and then everything after 20 to like 60 something, he worked on, and he wrote and drew
Yeah,
most
it
of the
says
work
here
on that.
he came back after issue 24 and then stayed on until issue 62, leaving in
Exactly.
1992.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
then came back in 2001 and did another two-part mini story for issues 168 and 169 with
And
Phil
he
So
was
Jimenez.
drawing and writing.
yes,
Like,
fun fact, fun fact,
yeah.
the crossover of JLA and Avengers was supposed to happen initially in the 80s,
Mhm.
right?
Hmm.
But there was like a huge piecing contest between the head editor of Marvel versus the one in DC, right?
Jim
And
Shooter.
they had, yeah, they had a very petty back and forth about what they wanted to do, who was supposed to fight who.
And
Um,
the
w-
industry was much more cutthroat back then, I
True.
yeah,
feel
That's why.
like,
That's why
too,
I
because
said
yeah,
there
Jim
wasn't as
Shooter.
much money involved. So they were competing for a much
exactly.
Mhm.
smaller pot, It's not like
Yeah,
today
so
where they don't really have to compete with each other because they have their set fan bases now at
yeah,
this point, and they've got movies and games and TV and
so
everything. But back then it was
what
just the comic books.
exactly? So what spiked the beef, if you want to call it that, was that the editor in DC they gave George Perez the green light to start doing sketches, right, with the script that they already had started, but nothing was said. It was just they was trying to have something to show Marvel, right, to go back and forth. But Marvel saw that as, oh, you are not gonna go ahead with this story and these sketches without our approval. That's the way they took it. They didn't took it. I was like, hey, this is my ideas. Here you go. Let me know what you think. They saw that as DC overstepping the terms and they agree on contract. So it became a battle of who could control the narrative around the story, and essentially George Perez got tired of the politics, and there you can I'm not gonna quote him, you can look this up. He basically said, I'm tired of the peace contest and the politics between these two publishers, so I'm gonna take myself out of the project. And that basically it was what killed the project, because nobody wanted to do it. Nobody liked doing team comic books, and nobody wanted to do a crossover that big. So I guess that chip on the shoulder came again for George, because after that was when he did Crisis on Infinite Earths. And if you've seen some of the artwork, I mean,
He
it
was
holds
drawing
up.
angrily, you can tell. Like he
He
was
has
drawing out
something
of
to
spite
prove.
in that story,
Hey,
man.
man,
Exactly. He
I
has
was I
something
was
to prove.
just showing some of it for our watchers on YouTube. But yeah, like George's artwork, he was like, "All right, y'all want to play? I'm drawing."
Yeah,
Right,
because
and yeah, we'll
Marvel
show some artwork at the bottom somewhere for
Marvel
the
made
viewers
it
on
sound
YouTube,
like they
but
didn't trust George with this project,
Mm.
when everybody, his peers, the fans, everybody knew that that was the guy. That was his specialty. Even to this day, you had Crisis on Infinite Earths, right? Then I don't know, 20 years later, you had JLA Avengers crossover, and maybe 3 or 4 years later, you had Infinite Crisis.
Mhm.
George did the work on that again, and it's another huge crossover for DC. Like this guy never stopped taking on challenges. He didn't have to do that. Like his work was Hall of Fame already.
Right.
He could have just sit back and do single character comics or just write. You know, now he's like,
I mean, somebody
oh,
with his talent, he could, because he could write and he could draw. I mean, if we're being real about it, he could have opened his own publishing company and probably done very well for a while.
Oh
yeah,
yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah. And another
that's
thing I like about George Perez, he so a lot of people like to say that the first time Batman uses the grapple gun was in the 1989 Batman movie, because they say
mm,
from there all he used was like it was pretty much like a rope with a batarang attached, and he had to like throw it, right? But George Perez actually was the first artist to draw a grapple gun. It was in
mm.
Avengers comic. I think it was Avengers. I think it was I can't remember the number on it, but I know the cover in my head. It has Ultra Humanite on the cover. JJ, I'll probably get with you after this episode and send you the cover so that way you can pop it up on the screen.
Yeah,
But
I'm trying to see if I can look.
Okay.
but it had the Ultra
Because
Humanite.
I'm sitting here researching, trying to find it too.
It
But
was
Yeah,
it had the Ultra Humanite on the cover, and Superman was on the cover as well. Uh, oh, it was
it was a Batman
Justice
book.
League of America 196. That was the issue.
mm, okay.
And there's a panel for the first time ever. Batman like falls and he takes out this device and, pew, and you see
Mm.
the grapple. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. George Perez was the first to do that, to draw the grapple
Hey, that's a good fun fact. That's a good fun fact.
gun.
For sure.
Yeah, yep, yep. So yeah, man.
And George Perez is one of the artists that inspired the Hero Initiative. If
Mhm.
nobody at home knows what that is, the Hero Initiative is basically a charity. It's a foundation that collects money and helps basically retired out of work comic artists that are not able to help take care of themselves financially.
Yes.
So it's
Yeah.
these guys who worked on these books in the 60s, 70s, 80s and got paid pennies for these characters that are now worth billions.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's crazy
So
when,
if you guys want to look that up, we'll leave a link down in the description somewhere for that as well.
and also the Hero Initiative, when George had got sick, they did a campaign and they reprinted JLA Avengers for the first time in years. I don't know how
Hmm.
they got DC and Marvel to agree to that, but the fact that should tell you how much George Perez meant to the comic book world. The fact that
Oh yeah.
Marvel and
That's
DC agreed on something.
that's the thing. George Perez had the respect
Mhm.
and was
Hmm.
well liked among his peers, and that's and as you know, being in whatever business or work that you are, it's always hard not just to win the respect of like your subordinates, right? But your peers,
Mhm.
right?
Hmm.
Your peers, the people that do the same thing as you do, to give you high praise. I mean, that's just a lot.
Right, right. And I always heard that he was just fun to be around, like in like conventions and whatnot. I've heard that he was like one of the nicest people ever, and it's just such a shame. I
Oh, we lost JJ.
should be coming back.
Man down. Oh, there he is. We lost you for a second there.
Yeah, that's my computer. It's still, everything's good.
Oh,
Continue.
okay,
Okay.
cool. Gasho was
But yeah,
talking.
what Lombas was saying, every account that I have heard about George Paris is that he was very nice. He was very fan friendly. He would do everything he could to take on commissions when he went to conventions. Um, if he was taking a picture with a fan, he was always do silly poses and wear like silly shirts designed by his wife.
Mhm.
Um, He was just a very lovable person.
Yeah, and I mean, you always hear stories. He treated his fans amazingly. He was always ready to take pictures, sign autographs, anything like that. And like, I think you could tell a lot about a person like that who on how they treat their fans.
True.
Right.
Because a lot of these comic creators, we don't have a face to the name a lot of times with some of these people.
Very
It's
true.
True.
not
Very
like an
true.
author of like say a novel or a big huge fantasy book where the author's picture and their whole biography is on the back cover.
Right.
With comic book writers and artists, we get last names on a cover. They don't even
True.
give us the first name of some of these artists.
That is
A lot
true.
of us have to
Yeah.
just track that down and
That's
figure it
one
out.
thing. That's one thing I like about the scene now, that they started put on the label the name of the artist for at least the cover.
Hmm.
And before, if you didn't recognize their signature, you wouldn't know who it was. You'll have to like either do a research or open the book or Google it. But now, and I don't want to go get one right now to show it, but DC's books on the label they will have like a black frame with the name of the artist that did that, so they can get their credit.
Right. Man.
Yeah, they're getting
R.I.P. to
better
George
with that.
Perez, man. R.I.P. to George Perez. Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
man.
I think it's safe to say that he's probably the most influential Latino comic book creator. Am I right?
Yes.
I mean,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I don't disagree.
Yeah. I think we could have made this whole episode just about George Perez, man.
well, we did do the
Like,
whole last segment of it, so you know.
true that. True that, man. It's
But yeah, I think that's about all the time we've got for today. So I want to thank everybody that's listening on Spotify, everybody that's watching on YouTube, however you're consuming the official Crossover Comics podcast. We appreciate it. We're going to leave links for everybody's social media down below, including Year of the Collector, our amazing guest today. And
Thank you, thank
yeah,
you.
everybody, happy Hispanic Heritage Month.
yeah, man. It's
We will
amazing.
catch you guys in 2 weeks for the next episode, and take it easy.
Cool.
All right.
Peace out.